Kenji Lopez-alt is considered the godfather of YouTube. He has taught so many people how to cook properly, and all of his advices are fantastic. And today, I think he's gonna school me on how to cook a steak properly, because I'll be completely honest, I have learned a lot from this guy. So enough talking, let's begin.
Hey everyone, it's Kenji. I'm gonna show you how to reverse sear a big steak. So, the reverse sear, and I know people are going to start talking about this in the comments, but the reverse sear is a process that I developed.
Here's the deal, everybody. I understand exactly why he's saying that, why people are going to go ahead and trash him on the comment section, because they're going to say he's not the one that invented, he's not the one that created, he's not the one that did it the very first time. And by all fairness, you guys are right. However, he was the one that made it available and known to everyone out there. I've learned the reverse sear from him. I had no idea what it was. Kenji, you deserve the credit. Everyone nowadays know reverse sear because of you.
And when I say I developed, I just want to be clear. When I say I developed, I'm not claiming to be the first person to ever do this because it's pretty clear that I'm not. But at the time, the reverse sear was not really a known technique. In the period since we published that in 2007, some people have brought it to my attention, mainly Meathead over at AmazingRibs.com, where you can find a full history of the reverse sear. It was brought to my attention that a guy named Chris Finney.
Now I want you guys to take a look at this beautiful steak that he's cooking right here. Using the reverse sear method is fantastic, but there are a lot of downsides to it. One of them is that if you use a thin steak, forget it, man. There's no reason why you would use this technique. It has to be a thick steak. That's why he chose that one. Another thing that is quite important is to season your steak properly. Look at the amount of salt this man is putting. He knows how to cook a steak.
So I'm confident in saying that well, I came up with the process independently. I sort of modeled it after sous vide because we were cooking sous vide in restaurants a lot those days.
Oh, he modeled after sous vide. That's fantastic. I did not know that. Also, did you guys notice how coarse the actual black pepper is? That is very coarse. Does not matter what you do, everybody. In the end, you still feel a little bit of crunchiness. That's why I prefer to be a little bit more fine, but there's nothing wrong with that.
The process is based on the idea behind sous vide, which is where rather than the traditional method of cooking steak, where you would, in a restaurant, what you would do is you would sear it over very high heat, either on a grill or under a broiler or in a pan, and then you would slide it into an oven to finish cooking. That method works really well if your goal is to cook steaks fast.
Yes, correct. Cook steaks fast, but also create an incredible crust. Nowadays, that's the method I use the most whenever I'm cooking on the grill. It is quick work, everybody, and if you master it, you won't be able to tell the gray band, which is one of the reasons why you use the reverse sear. Just like sous vide. If you're looking for a different kind of texture, that's what sous vide is for. But there's nothing wrong with direct sear. It's been used in restaurants for years because it works.
But what it does is it ends up giving you a sort of gradient, a temperature gradient, where the very center might be medium rare or whatever temperature you want it, and then as you get closer to the edges, it gets more and more well done.
That is because whoever cooked it wasn't doing it right. It took way too long to get that sear. That's what I gotta say about that steak. Because if you do it properly, you will not have that much gray band.
So you get this kind of bullseye pattern. What the reverse sear does is you reverse the order of those things. So you start it in a low temperature oven.
Yep.
In this case, we're going to go with a 250 degree oven. You start with a low temperature oven, and then you let it come up to temp.
The biggest problem with this method, again, everybody, it takes a very long time. You got to have some patience. It's almost the same thing as you using sous vide.
And then you take it out and sear it at the end. And what that gives you, which you'll see at the end, is that it gives you a very perfectly even doneness from all the way from edge to center. So what I've got here is this works especially well for thick steaks, by the way. It's not really worth it for anything thinner than like 1.5 inches. This is about 2.5 inch thick, 2 1/4 to 2.5 inch thick tomahawk. So that's a rib steak. Comes from the loin with a good chunk of spinalis here, which is my favorite part of a steak.
That part of the steak right there is considered by most the best part of the cow. Obviously, for me, that doesn't even come close to the queen of all meats, also known as picanha. And if you've never had it, do yourself a favor, go get yourself some. Because I don't care what you say, that doesn't even come close to the queen.
Yeah, so we got it seasoned, salt and pepper, that's it, plenty of salt and pepper. We're gonna put it on this rack on a sheet tray. I'm going to slide a temperature probe into it.
I love that he doesn't have big ego and he thinks he can just pokes. Temperature probe is required.
You want to go on the side and get it towards the center.
Yep.
As close to the center as you can. I have this temperature probe alarm set at 125 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I'm going to slide it right into a 250-degree oven.
It's going to take
and
a
it's going to
while.
stay in there until it gets to 125 degrees Fahrenheit, which is going to be medium rare. It should take, a steak that thick is probably going to take about 2 hours at this temperature. So this is a technique you use when you got some time on your hands.
What did I say, everybody? You need some time. You got to have at least 2.5 hours to cook the steak. That's one of the reasons I don't use it as often anymore, because my crew is hungry, everybody. They want to eat quickly.
So I will see you back here once this goes off, which should be in just about an hour and 45 minutes, so not quite 2 hours.
There you go, he was right.
We're at 123.8 degrees, so getting pretty close to 125. You could let it go all the way to 125. Anywhere between 120 and 125, even up to around 130 is going to be in that medium rare range. All right, so now that we're getting close.
Now here's the deal. He went through all that trouble, waited all that time in order to cook this steak to perfection. This is where everything can go south and you can mess it up. If you don't have a super hot sear, you will get a gray band no matter what, and all that time is wasted. It needs to be smoking hot, everybody. And if there's any moisture on top of the steak, you gotta pat it dry so you don't waste any time.
So what I've got is this baking steel griddle. I'm only using this big one because that's a tomahawk steak and it's not going to fit inside a normal pan. So with a tomahawk steak like that, you would either do it on something like this, like a flat griddle, a channel, or you can finish it on your grill. Of course, with a smaller steak that fits in a pan, you can do this on a pan, so cast iron. But what you want to do is you want to really, really preheat it till it's ripping hot, so like smoking hot, okay?
Yep.
Because the idea is that now you're going to spend as little time as possible actually searing the meat. You want to build up a crust, and that's about it. So the longer it takes over high heat like that, the longer it takes on a burner, the more sort of that gradient inside is going to get built up. So your goal is really just to sear it as fast as possible.
Take a look at the steak, everybody. It almost looks identical to sous vide, almost identical. Now, if I were to reverse sear this steak over here, I would go at a little bit higher temperature so I can render even more of the fat. The only reason I would use the reverse sear nowadays versus sous vide is to be able to render the fat. Render that fat, everybody. It's delicious, but it's a lot better if it's rendered properly.
All right, so I'm going to take this probe out now. And I'm going to double check my temperature. You also want to double check your temperature with an actual not a leave-in probe, because a leave-in probe can actually...
He don't take no chances, everybody. He is double checking. I mean, I just love Kenji, man. He does everything properly. He teaches the right way. This guy has a tremendous amount of experience in the restaurant business as a chef. Yeah, man, you're schooling me how to cook a steak, because honestly, besides inviting me, you didn't do anything else wrong.
All right, we're good. We're at 126, 127, so we're going to be right around that sort of...
So if it's 125, 126, by the time he's done searing, that's going to raise up all the way up to 135, and then another resting for another 5 to 10 minutes. Then you're looking at a final internal temperature of around 137 to 140, which is really in the upper part of medium rare, but it is still medium rare, never well done.
Mid-rare to medium range,
there you go.
For a fatty cut like ribeye, that's the temperature I like to go. I like to go a little bit hotter than rare, or a little hotter than even sort of the low end of medium rare.
Nothing wrong with that.
Because you really want to get it warm enough, or at least I want to get it warm enough that the fat's going to start to render a little bit.
Yes.
All right, so we are smoking hot, which means we're about ready to start searing.
He's getting that camera ready. That second camera. You saw that, everybody? He's ready for the camera, man. He knows this is the sexy shot.
Looking good.
And see if that pan is smoking hot. You see right there, I would immediately start petting it dry. He's just touching it, and I can clearly see that there's some moisture on top of the steak. I would definitely pet it dry even more to get that sear quick. Sear should be done at maximum 1 minute, no more. 1 minute max per side.
What happens is, if you have a raw steak, there's a lot of surface moisture.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of energy to evaporate that surface moisture. It takes about 5 times more energy to evaporate a drop of water than it does to take that water all the way from 0 degrees to 100 degrees Celsius. So the thing that takes the most energy when you're searing a steak is surface moisture, evaporating surface moisture. So by starting in a low oven, you end up drying off all that moisture. So what you see here is not actually like steak juices. What you're seeing there is fat. And that's going to help the steak sear better.
I disagree because there's still a little bit of myoglobin on the top of the steak. Let it dry, take the myoglobin out, which is not blood, everybody. Don't say it's blood. There's no blood in there, okay? It's myoglobin, also known as steak juices, also known as delicious, also known as give that to me if you don't want to eat it.
This is rice bran oil. You could use any kind of neutral high temp oil, rice bran, canola.
Yes. Did you guys listen to what he said? Obviously, he said high temperature oil, but he said neutral flavor. I've seen so many chefs and so many people searing steaks with olive oil, but olive oil has a wonderful flavor and it masks the flavor of steak. Use avocado oil, grapeseed oil, canola oil, so many others you can use. And if you want to go to a whole nother level, use animal fat like beef tallow. All of those are great options. Why would you mess up a steak that took you so long to cook? Plus, on top of that, that's an expensive steak. Nice. It's hot enough.
I'm gonna weigh this guy down.
That's a great tip right there. I also have those chef press. They are fantastic.
Let's see how we're doing here.
Let's see. Very nice golden brown color. Check that out, everybody. That's what you're looking for. But notice that the fat is not very seared. What I would have done on top of the chef press, I would have grabbed the kitchen towel and just hold it on. You're only doing it for a minute, everybody. It's not a big deal. And you're gonna get full surface contact.
So if you were cooking sous vide, you would do a very similar thing. You would cook the steak to whatever temperature you want to serve it at. You want whatever internal temperature you want, so it could be 120, 125, 130. Then you'd, in a restaurant setting, what you would do is you would leave the steak in the water bath for service. And then when someone orders the steak, you take it out and sear it. That way you can have perfectly cooked steak reliably.
Nice, much better, Cross.
And be able to serve it quite fast.
Notice golden brown coloration. There's nothing burned, there's no black. That's what he likes because he knows that that is the right way. You could have a little bit of char, but not too much char. Golden brown is better.
You know, the other nice thing about the reverse sear compared to more traditional cooking methods is that that window of perfect doneness is much wider. So when you're cooking in a traditional way with a very hot oven or a very hot pan, it's very quickly going to rise from, say, 125 up to 135. It could take a couple minutes, maybe even less if you're cooking hot enough. So that's a very small window you have to get it precisely done the way you want it.
That's why I love sous vide, everybody.
So you have a much higher likelihood that you're going to get a steak cooked exactly.
I really
the way you
hope
want
he
it
sears
when
the
you do a
edges
reverse
as well.
sear.
You see those little flare-ups that just happen right there? A lot of people think that might be bad or that might scare you off, which I totally understand. All that is fat being ignited, and that creates a smoky flavor on a steak, on burgers, that is absolutely delicious. My good friend Uncle Roger calls that wok hei, and he's absolutely right. That is delicious, and it will produce an incredible flavor on your steak, burgers, or egg fry rice.
Look at that brownie. All right. Last but not least, we're going to make sure that we sear this side.
Definitely sear the sides. Very important. It's looking pretty good, everybody. I'm not going to lie. I will eat that all day, every day. Well, not every day. My doctor will be really mad. Oh.
I actually prefer reverse sear, even though the technique, originally I developed it to be able to sort of mimic sous vide at home. I actually prefer the technique over sous vide.
Really? I wouldn't say I would prefer the technique over sous vide. I would say is what I'm in the mood for at that specific time. That's the reason I have 3 channels. One is specifically dedicated for sous vide because I absolutely love it. The other one is specifically for the grill. I cook everything on the grill. I love that charcoal flavor. And then the other one, sometimes I just want to stick it in an air fryer. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's not overcooked.
And we are done.
Very good. And then cut that baby up. Let's see what it looks like inside.
Yep. A board to serve this on.
Very nice. Looks good. Let me see. Let's see the result. And
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Look at that.
I will eat that all day, every day. Overall, I will give Kenji Lopez a 10 out of 10. Will highly recommend. That looks absolutely delicious. You just schooled me on making better steaks. Everybody listen to this man. He is fantastic. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing for years. And Kenji, if you guys want to see a collaboration with me and him, put it down in the comments down below, because he is the GOAT. And I want to personally thank you for all of the things that not only you taught a lot of people, but including myself. You're the man. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.